And as we set this up, the new fire service court, what we're going to do on the new webpage, we've got a big redesign coming out where guys will be able to submit questions to you and concerns, and we're really hoping that the fire service will reach out and use you guys. You know, and if you can't help them, you know, this is what you should be doing. Because lots of times you wonder, do I need a lawyer? You know, you get that letter from the city, or you get whatever, and it could be, you know, wrongful termination. It could be whatever it is, and guys wonder, boy, do I have a leg to stand on? You know, or it's interesting because we always make jokes about you guys, and I'm not trying to be a jerk about it, but you know, there's a million lawyer jokes.
We make jokes about ourselves, so that's okay.
But the problem is when you really need a lawyer, and you said it best, John, inadequate representation is just not acceptable for anybody. You know, whether it's a firefighter, or a cop, or anybody.
One of the things that we are trying to do by some networking internally amongst ourselves is that one of the things that's hard about the fire law is it varies state to state. As I said this morning to the group, if I go do a presentation on ventilation or on forcible entry, it's going to be pretty similar. It may have different doors or locks in one city versus another, but typically it can use the same applications. Law differs state by state, and that's one of the things we find as we talk amongst ourselves, that we can give general principles, we can talk about cases, we can give general guidance, but ultimately the other thing we would encourage, I think, is that fire departments, fire officers need to develop good relationships with local attorneys and hopefully find one in their state that really understands what it is we're all about. And we're not unusual. I mean, I used to think we were, but there's probably at least 100 firefighter lawyers out there. I met another one actually here today.
It would be great to create kind of, once this thing really gets rolling on the website, when you guys will have control over what you want to put in there and whatever, you know, we're just going to build a page out for Fire Service Court, and what goes in there is up to you guys, but almost like a directory, at least if you have a guy in there.
We have that, actually, we have that.
What an asset.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you don't want to bring in a guy, you're the first fireman he's ever met.
Yeah.
You know, because some of the stuff we see guys getting jammed up for these days are, you know, the gallows humor and the, you know, what we used to call hazing, you know, is now a crime in some places. You know, we used to think it was funny, you know, shaving cream in the boot or all this other goofy stuff. And I understand it crosses a line from time to time, but a lot of that's just a rite of passage, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not all for, you know, tying a guy up with duct tape and shaving his head or anything like that. But you know,
do you have any more suggestions?
You know, one time we took,
what can we get away with?
Get away with. We all know stuff like that's gone on, and I think that, you know, if the guys are willing participants, you never know where that line gets crossed, and that's a shame. And I think when it becomes personal, it's wrong. But you know, it's a changing world, and it's a changing dynamic, and really the courts are always kind of at the tip of that spear. And having you guys as an asset, you know, it's just, I think it's going to elevate not only what we're doing online in terms of the radio show, but it's also going to elevate what we're doing in the magazine. It's going to elevate, you know, this show, because all of you teach for us. I think everybody's doing a class this year. You all contribute in writing, and you all are going to be on the radio show. So we're really excited about it. You know, I really see this as being because lots of times people say, this is a true story. A prominent legislature, congressperson, at dinner one time with me, saw my ring, and she said, "Oh, is that your high school ring?" I said, "Oh, it's my college ring." And she said, "Oh, you went to college?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm a fireman." You know, she said, "I thought you were a fireman." I said, "Yeah, I am a fireman." She goes, "Well, then why'd you go to college?" And I said, "Well, because I like chemistry and physics." How was liberal arts? You know, am I speaking slowly? You know, it was like I wanted to, but you couldn't because you like, come across the table. But there's a perception that we're not, you know, the kind of caliber that you men are, and I think that that's changing. I think it's about professionalism, and you guys really add to it. And you know, Curt's done incredible work in Providence, and you know, Chip, you're just an amazing author. I love your stuff in our magazine. I love your stuff in Fire Chief, and you know, you're always writing great stuff. And Brad's developed software for the fire service and tracking systems for volunteers, which is incredible stuff. And you know, John, every time I have a problem, I pick up the phone, and John's like, "Yeah, Bobby, you can do this, you can't do that." And he's every now and then in an editorial.
Mostly telling you can't do this.
Yeah, I go a little far.
I don't like that opinion.
I always got, you know, I got 2 pensions and a bad attitude. John always reels me in. I still need this job, kid. Slow down. But you know, just having you guys as an asset in a place where a guy can send in a simple question, even just, "Hey, do I really need a lawyer?"
Right.
And get an honest answer.
I think that what we're seeing, if you look at case law, it's all about people. I mean, we don't get sued very often for burning things down or, you know, those sort of rescue events. If you look at all of the seminal case law, you look at all of the standards that other lawyers look at across the country, and notwithstanding the fact that, you know, every state has its own set of laws. But we look at, you know, what Supreme Court decisions are, what circuit court decisions are, that kind of dictate policy. And I'm always concerned when a lawyer or a judge dictates policy in an organization on how to conduct yourself. I think it's, you know, better coming up from the ground up in order to create the policy and, you know, set the standard, instead of having somebody sue an organization in order to set the policy and set the standard, which sometimes is you just can't achieve it. It's unsustainable, unachievable, it's expensive to do. And I think that, you know, one of the things that I tried to do when I was, you know, in the fire service was try to keep the fire chief out of trouble. And, you know, as we talked about earlier, is just ask the question. Ask the question. Don't be afraid to ask the question to somebody who can understand what you're talking about and provide an answer that's reasonable to you.
Well, you know, one of the reasons why we don't ask you guys a lot of questions is because I always thought talk was cheap till I met a lawyer. Just kidding.
Yeah. Well,
But at least with you guys, you know, it'll be an email, it'll be a, you know, it'll be a phoned-in question, or however we set up the show, and you know, going forward, we're just pleased. And you're all coming back to teach again next year, and
If you're going to have us.
oh, absolutely. You know, I think it's a great workshop, really. You know, legal issues is a great workshop. I'd love to have you all do classrooms where we get another panel going where guys can come up and ask questions. But really, I think the 8-hour format's the best place to do it, where, you know, especially for aspiring fire officers, nowadays you see fire officers being sued by their crews.
Right.
You know, firefighters being sued by fellow firefighters.
Right.
You know, the writ case that's coming up now with the young lady who was tragically burned, and you know, it's a fascinating piece of case law that's going to come out of that. You know, how far does that liability extend, and it's amazing.
One of the cases I talked about today, and we had at the general session today, Harold Shaperger talking about, you know, the emphasis on by the IAFF to minimum staffing.
Right.
And there was a fire chief who spoke out at the scene of a fire where a person was killed and said, "We don't have adequate staffing." And
They canned him.
They suspended him. They suspended him.
But did he win?
No.
No.
He lost. They found that his speech wasn't protected, and this was a case from last month.
Well, that's right. I
Yeah,
read that. That's
and it would surprise me. I would think that it was protected speech. So, you know, that's the other thing is we need to become more political. But one of the things is you have to make sure you do it in a proper framework, and that's going to be one of the other things that we're going to. I think we'll have an opportunity to talk about is, you know, how do fire chiefs or firefighters be vocal and be political, because we have to be, but at the same time doing it in a manner that is protected.
Yeah. Well, I hate to see it where the chief's aide has to be a lawyer. You know,
I think you wrote about that.
I think I did.
but you know what I mean? And I think it's, you know, we're there, right? I mean, you feel like we're almost there. You know, is it okay if we do and I don't call it aggressive interior attack, proactive interior attack at this building? You know?
We don't want to get to that point.
Yeah, you don't like that. I was going to say, you don't like that.
No,
It's
we don't want to get to
terrible.
that point.
No.
And I have written and talked about the need for fire service leaders to be leaders,
Right.
and not let the lawyers dictate
I
what we're
remember.
going to do.
It was well written.
And that's, you know, a really important concept. But in order for that to happen, the leader has to have a really good handle on the general legal
Right, you
issues.
used to do what John was just talking about.
Right.
Ask the question in advance. Know what your boundaries are.
Exactly. And not abdicate your leadership responsibility to a lawyer.
But also what we need to do is, as lawyers, and I see this all the time, we need to identify the holes in the laws which are exposing our fire departments to liability. And then we need to get in touch with the lobbying, the activists, the political voices, and allow those people to fix the problem. Because we see things all the time that are affecting the fire service, increasing their exposure where they shouldn't have any, but it falls at the end of the court case. There's no legislation solving that, and that's something where we can do something about that and really fix some problems.
Well, these are the faces and the voices of Fire Service Court. Brad Pinsky,
Thank you.
John Murphy,
Thank you, Bobby.
Chip Comstock, and Curt Varone. These
Thanks,
are
Bob.
4 great firefighters, 4 great lawyers. Fire Service Court coming to Fire Engineering Radio. It's in the magazine now and soon to be on the website. I'm Bobby Halton. We're live at FDIC 2009, and I'll speak with you again soon.